What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue here with my 2024 predictions for the upcoming 2024 college football season. The Kansas Jayhawks are up next. Jayhawks coming off a great year last year, going 9-4 in 2023 overall. Very close to coming up with 10 wins last year, but this team did go 9-4. It was a great year last year for the Jayhawks. And this team almost really came close to making it into the Big 12 championship. It seems like this program has been one of the most consistent now programs in the Big 12 for the last 3 years now. So my thoughts on Kansas this year for 2024, I think they're going to be once again pretty good and also be a very consistent team in the Big 12. You look at the offensive side of the football, they do return Jalen Daniels back at quarterback. If he stays healthy, this Kansas offense could be really good and definitely pretty decent as well. So I think the offense should be pretty solid for them, and then defensively, they do have a good amount of production coming back there as well. So I think both sides of the football for Kansas, they should be overall pretty solid on both sides of the football this year. So let's now go ahead and get to the schedule here for 2024. This is the schedule here for the Kansas Jayhawks. Again, they were 9-4 last year in 2023. So let's go game by game now and give you a record prediction here for the Kansas Jayhawks for 2024. They start things off on a Thursday night on August 29th. They'll play Lindenwood here, an FCS team. Never heard of that school. So I think the Jayhawks will take care of business in this game. This is a game that they probably should. Win by 35-plus points, maybe over 20-plus points, I should say. They probably scored 35 or 40 points in this one as well. So I think Kansas starts out with a win here over Lindenwood here on a Thursday night on August 29th. So I got the Jayhawks starting out 1-0. And then there's that big game on the road here in week number 2 at Illinois here on September 7th. A rematch, of course, from last year against the Big Ten in Illinois. Last year, the Jayhawks defeated Illinois, at home by 6 points. The game was on a Friday, though, from last year. This year, it's on a Saturday. Illinois, I don't know if they're going to be really good or not. A lot of people are not really high on this Illinois team. However, it is on the road, so you never know. This could be like a really tricky game here for Kansas. I think going into this game, though, the Jayhawks might be favored in this one. The Jayhawks might be a top 25 team. So maybe it's one of those early upset alert type games here in just like week number 2 of the season. But Kansas has a lot of time to prepare for this game after playing a Thursday night game. And I think the Jayhawks are definitely the more talented team here. So with that being said, I'm going to go with Kansas here to knock off Illinois here on the road. That's a very tough place to play on the road, but I know a lot of people are not really that high on Illinois this season. So I'm going to go with Kansas there to pull off the win on the road at Illinois. It's probably a close game, maybe in the first half, but maybe the Jayhawks probably pull away in the second half. But again, you never know. That probably could be like a game that goes into the fourth quarter. It probably comes down to the wire as well, but I think Kansas does win it there, and I got them improving to 2-0 here on the season. And then they take care of business against UNLV in a rematch of their bowl game from last year. They should be able to win that game pretty easily as well. So I got them starting out 3-0, and then they play on the road here at West Virginia, open up conference play on September 21st. West Virginia is going to be a team this year I think is going to be pretty good. They do have a lot of experience coming back on both sides of the football. West Virginia, potentially a preseason top 25 team as well. I think this could be a top 25 matchup. I think both of these teams are pretty even. However, West Virginia does have the home field advantage in this one. And like I said, with the Big 12 predictions for all the Big 12 teams that I've done so far, all these games in the Big 12 are going to be so competitive, and they're going to be really fun to watch. A lot of these teams are going to beat up on each other. I think this game probably comes down to the fourth quarter. It's probably going to be a low-scoring type game, but, playing on the road at West Virginia is a very tough place to play. So with that being said, home field advantage might be the difference in this one. I'm going to go with the Mountaineers here to give Kansas their first loss here of the season. So that puts Kansas's record now at 3-1. Next game is at home against TCU here on September 28th. This will be a home game here for the Jayhawks. I think TCU will be a little bit improved from where they were from last year. They're not coming off the best season, but maybe TCU definitely is one of those other consistent teams in the Big 12. Kansas, though, is playing at home in this one. I do expect them to be the favorite here in this one, and I think they're definitely the more better team in this one as well, and definitely the more experienced roster. So I think Kansas gets a bounce-back win after the loss to West Virginia from last week. They do beat TCU here at home in a really close game, though. So again, like I said, some of these games are going to be really close here for Kansas. So I got Kansas getting that win over TCU, and that puts their record here at 4-1. Next game is on the road here at Arizona State on October 5th. Definitely could be a trap game here. A little bit of a tricky one here for the Jayhawks on the road here at Arizona State. They got to really travel far out here for this game. I think down south and everything. But, Arizona State is a team that I don't think is going to be really good this year. Don't really know how good the Sun Devils are going to be. Obviously, they had a first-year head coach last season, so we don't really know how good this team is going to be. But, Kansas probably gets off to a slow start in this game. Maybe Arizona State hangs around for a little while. I think the Jayhawks are clearly the better team here, so I think the Jayhawks do go on the road and beat Arizona State here, and that puts their record now here at 5-1. They get their first bye week here in the second weekend of the month of October before playing at home against Houston here on October the 19th. And in my opinion, if you're a Kansas fan, I think you definitely would rather have the bye week before playing the rivalry game against Kansas State. That probably would be an ideal spot there for the bye week for the Jayhawks. But either way, they get the bye week here before playing Houston at home. I don't really expect the Cougars to be all that good this year. First-year head coach and everything. I know the Tulane coach is coming in from last year and everything. But I think Kansas definitely is the better team here. And remember, a couple of years ago, Kansas actually beat Houston on the road. So this is kind of like a revenge game here for the Cougars, but I think Kansas does win this one. I think they're clearly the more talented team and definitely the more consistent team as well. So I think Kansas, coming out of a bye week, they do beat Houston here at home, and that puts their record now here at 6-1. Next game is on the road against rival Kansas State here on October 26th. Of course, this has always been a really interesting matchup, even though Kansas State has really dominated the series over the years. Of course, Kansas used to be one of the worst Power 4 and / Power 5 teams in the history of college football, but now it seems like, Kansas is back to where they need to be, and they're probably, being on the level now of their rival in Kansas State. I think this is going to be a very competitive game. It will be a dogfight. It's obviously a rivalry game. Anything can happen, but playing on the road, I've already done my Kansas State video from last week, and I already chose the Wildcats to win this game. So because it's a 50-50 game and it's on the road here at Kansas State, I'm going to go with the home field advantage. I'm going to go with the Wildcats here in a low-scoring, close type ball game here in this one. So I got Kansas State giving Kansas their second loss here of the season. They get a bye week right after that Kansas State game before playing Iowa State here at home on November 9th. And I think this is a pretty good spot for a bye week for the Jayhawks this time. You're taking on a veteran Iowa State team. This is going to be a really good team this year. I'm telling you, they are a dark horse contender in the Big 12. I mean, they got the second most returning production coming back in the country. And again, Iowa State is just going to be really that good. But, this is a home game here for the Jayhawks. That's the good news there. If this game was on the road at Iowa State, I would definitely choose the Cyclones. But, at the end of the day, home field advantage really favors the difference here for the Jayhawks. Plus, they get a bye week before playing this game. I think Kansas comes out pretty fired up for this one after the loss to Kansas State a couple weeks ago. And I think they do beat Iowa State here for their 7th win of the season. So that puts their record now here at 7-2. And then they play on the road here at BYU on November 16th. Obviously, a revenge game here for the BYU Cougars. This is their second year in the Big 12, and that was actually BYU's first game last year in the Big 12. It was against this Kansas team. Both teams were undefeated last year, but Kansas, of course, won that game against BYU last year. I think it's going to be a really competitive game. I think it really can go either way, to be honest. I think BYU might be a little bit better this year. I mean, I've been back and forth on this game. My gut feeling was telling me to go with Kansas just because they're the more talented team, but I'm going to go with BYU to pull off the upset here. I think BYU comes out really fired up. It's definitely one of those upset alert type games right here in the month of November, and I think BYU pulls off a huge upset here in this one and gives Kansas their 3rd loss here of the season. Again, I was back and forth on that game. Again, I was going to go with Kansas, but I'm going to go with BYU here to get revenge on the Jayhawks. So that puts Kansas's record now here at 7-3. Next game is at home against Colorado here on November 23rd. Another newcomer, of course, coming over from the Pac-12. This is going to be a very exciting game. I think both of these teams are going to be really good this year. You look at Colorado, might be a little bit better coming over to the Big 12 this year. They do have a good amount of production coming back. And I think these are really two good, decent teams. I think both of these teams are pretty even in my opinion. Colorado may have the more fast-paced offense and everything, but you look at Kansas, I mean, obviously they're playing at home in this one, and it's tough to go against Kansas when they're playing at home. This is a big game here. This is also potentially like a top 25 matchup, and plus I think Kansas probably comes out really fired up for this one. Really after the loss to BYU and everything, they get a bounce back win. And I think it comes against Colorado. So I'm going to go with Kansas here in a 50-50 close game. Maybe that's a high-scoring game. But I'm going to go with the Jayhawks here just because they're playing at home. So I got Kansas now improving to 8-3. And then the final game of the season is on the road here at Baylor on November 30th. They will play this Baylor team on the road. This is going to be a really tricky game. Not really as tricky maybe as the Arizona State games. Or maybe like it's more tricky than the Arizona State game and probably like the BYU game as well. It's a very tough place to play at Baylor. I know Baylor has not been good in the last couple years, but maybe they could be now a little bit better this year. Baylor is a team that I'm really having a hard time figuring out. But again, when it comes to the Big 12, a lot of these games on the road are going to be really tricky, and a lot of these teams are going to beat up on each other. And like I said, anything can happen here in the Big 12, and definitely anything can happen here at the end of the season. And anybody can win this conference. So with that being said, this is a tough one to call for me. I think it's a 50-50 game. If it was at home for Kansas, I definitely would go with the Jayhawks, but I'm going to go with Baylor here to pull off the upset. So I think Baylor upsets Kansas here at the end of the season. So I got Kansas losing their fourth game of the regular season and losing their final game here of the regular season on the road here at Baylor. So my prediction here for Kansas is 8-4 here for 2024. So the same record as last year. This year I'm a little bit higher on Kansas. I definitely can see them going 9-3. If they beat BYU and Baylor both on the road, this team can definitely go 10-2. West Virginia and Kansas State, those are definitely like really tough road games. But again, every game on this schedule for Kansas is not going to be easy, especially when they get into Big 12 play. And even that Illinois game, don't really sleep on that game in week number 2. I think the winner of that game probably goes on to have a really good season, but maybe the loser of that game probably doesn't have a really good season the rest of the way. So if Kansas gets off to a 3-0 start, they can have a really good year the rest of the way. But again, this Big 12, it's really tough to predict these teams. Again, when it comes to the Big 12, there's going to be a lot of competitive games. But again, my prediction here for Kansas for 2024 is 8-4 here. So let me guys know what you think about this Kansas team down in the comments below. What do you think their record will be for 2024? Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.